to me, Tom, if only Emmanuel had a will, we will all be living in peace. My name is Tom Okewale Shonaya, and what I am doing here today is not to condemn, but to allow life lessons to shape our choices and perspectives, to allow life lessons to improve our relationships and make living beautiful. I have seen many situations when a loved one dies and did not put things in place. Bitterness sets in, anger, sometimes regrets. And the people you are supposed to love most when you're alive, they are fighting and they are resentful. So today I have with me Tara, and we will talk about living in peace, peacefully, when you lose a loved one, with or without a will in place. Tara and I went to the same secondary school. Tara and I went to the same secondary school in Bida, Niger State. Tara lost her husband, and Tara's husband did not do a will, but Tara had a will. Tara had a focus, and Tara had a mission possible. And so today, TounTalks with Tara. Tara, I know the network has been in and out. You've been in and out. How are you? Are you there? Okay. So network has not been too fantastic, and hopefully Tara will join us soon. So Tara lost her husband, right? And Tara also happens to be a legal person. She lost her husband. Her husband didn't do a will. He didn't do any will at all. And one of the things I remember asking Tara is, Tara, were you agitated? You know, did you think the family would meddle? You know, and all of those. So Tara, thank you very much for coming on. Thanks a lot, Tara. I just mentioned that, Tara, please put your video off. I just mentioned that, you know, your husband didn't do a will, but that you had a focus and you had a mission, and the mission was possible. Tara, so Tara, tell me, you know, how are you today?
Well, I'm good. Thank you first for having me on the show. And I am good. Very, very good.
Thank you. What's happening to the network now? What is up?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I know. You've been in and out now. You've been in and out. So I'm wondering, what is the problem? Thank you. You know, you iPhone people, I always tell Taiwan and Esther, arrogant people. You want us to know you are using iPhone. My dear, Samsung is the best. I know they will tell me that I'm not supposed to advertise. So Tara, your husband did not write a will when he passed on.
No, he didn't.
Can you tell me why he chose not to write a will?
I think it's the normal reluctance of human beings, actually, when we don't want to come face to face with our mortality. You know, the fact that you think you will live forever, the fact that even though you might be ill, you have the hopes that, you know, you would live forever, and that making a will could be like a death wish, and, you know, incur the wrath of God or your faith, or is against your faith and your hopes to live. And also, you know, just the reluctance, you know, to come to terms with our mortality. But I think also it was also because I think he, in a way, he trusted me. He trusted that I was able to sort things out, because when there was a day we had a conversation and he said, "Oh, you know, you'll be all right, Sarah. You can live without me, and you are strong. You will do all that you need to do, you know, without me being on the picture." And I think also he knew the kind of family that, you know, he came from, and that they wouldn't disturb me in any way or give me any troubles, you know. So and then most of the assets we had were both in our joint names. So I think that assured him a bit that whatever happened, you know, I could take over the assets.
Thank you very much, Tara. So you see, I find it a little bit, what is the word now? A little bit confusing, if you're saying that he trusted you, because trust is a very important thing that we will talk about later. So if he trusted you, why not do a will then?
Yeah,
Why not? Why not?
because
Go on.
a will would make him face his mortality. And that's basically why most people don't do wills. It's not because they don't trust people, but because if they do a will, they think they're going to die. And nobody wants to die.
Ah,
They all want to go to heaven.
ah, ah. So you see, at this point in time, Tara, I want us to acknowledge that there is a cultural notation, and men do have fears that may prevent them from writing a will. You just said it. So let us take
Definitely.
the fears. Let's take the fears of men into consideration. And the good thing is, I have invited some male friends and family to listen and for them to hear what may likely happen to their loved ones when the man is gone, with or without a will. So the objective for me is to look at the reality of having a will. And if you choose not to have a will, like your husband chose not to have a will, what should the man do to protect his loved ones? So, Tara, what did your husband put in place since he did not write a will? What are those things he put in place to protect you and the children and his family, as
And
well?
okay, but I think the first thing that he did, and really I was the one that initiated it, I went to, you said earlier that we went to the same secondary school. So a friend of mine, in secondary school, she was my classmate. Her husband died, and it was quite tragic. They had waited for like 15, 16 years before having children. They had a set of twins. They had just been maybe 1 year old, and then she was pregnant again with the third child, and the husband went for a routine appendicitis surgery. And even before they did the surgery, he reacted badly to the gas, the anesthesia, and he died and he passed off. And when we went to visit him, he's I've been very pragmatic because I am pragmatic about that. Told us that okay, so finances, what's going to happen? Because she had two small children, and at that time she was pregnant, and she put out his two phones and said that she doesn't even know the passwords. The phones were passworded, and she didn't know them. That was one thing. Okay, do you know his ATM pin numbers? She said yes, she knew his ATM pin numbers, but she didn't have his internet banking details. So I said, oh, you would go with your friend to the ATM. We would confirm the balance in the bank, in his account, and then we would start to remove monies. But you can't do more than 200,000 or so, with the ATM transfers. But that's what happened, and when we were going home, I told all the girls that we were with me. And by that time, my husband had been diagnosed of a cancer, and I said, you know what, we shouldn't find ourselves in this situation if anything happens. And I told everybody, please go and know what, the assets your husband have and all that. And when I got to I talked to my husband about it. He said, okay. So I said, well, I know your PIN numbers. I don't know your internet banking and all that, so what would we do? He brushed it aside, and just we went about. But that thought kept lingering in my mind. And so one day I told him, you know what, I've asked you for all your details, but you didn't want to give it to me. So I'm going to put down all my details. So I got a piece of paper and I put down everything, my bank, internet banking details, my ATM pins, my Yahoo mail, passwords and all that. And I put it down. And I said, I put down my own now. Would you put yours down? And he did so. So after I did so, I put it in a drawer in the cabinet in our room. And that was it. And when he died, that was what I went to.
Tara, thank you so much for that. I picked up a few things. You were pragmatic about death. It's like you were prepared for it. A lot of people are not prepared for it. A lot of men are not, a lot of women are not prepared for it. And certainly our men are not prepared for it. So you knew your husband was dying, Tara. Did that help you to plan well? I'll tell you why I'm saying this, because sometimes death, as I said, is sudden. Women are mostly at the receiving end when the husband is dead. She's the first suspect. And you hear things like, how did he die? When? And where were you when he died? What happened? What did he eat? Where did he go? Pressures from all quarters. So the question now is, did knowing your husband was going to die, did it help you to plan? Did it help you to prepare better in terms of course, the financial burden, your future, and that of the children?
Well, first of all, I didn't know he was going to die because even at the point he died, nobody knew he was going to die, because a week to that time it was all about the place, But knowing that he had a terminal disease which could lead to death, made death cross my mind, severally. Of course, I tried to brush it of all ages, whether you are young, whether you're old, whether you're middle aged. So we must, and I started to talk about that a lot, that we must think about death. It really is part of living. For a tree to grow, the seed must die. So we shouldn't be afraid of death, and we must have those conversations. I remember that also my husband, even before, I think when he was first diagnosed, we started to have those conversations about death. What would you like? What would you do? What would, and he never brought up those conversations. I was the one that always brought them up, because I just knew that I had to protect myself and protect my children if anything happened. So I think that most people, should bring them up, whether the person has a terminal disease or not. We should be able to talk about death. It's the elephant in the room, and a lot of times we do not talk about it. So when it comes, it meets us unaware, and it shouldn't be, because the more we talk about life, the more we should also look out for death, because it's going to come.
I'm always saying that you inspire me, and I respect you a lot, because like you said, thank you, Tara, death is part of living, and we must have these conversations. We must talk about death. I've had very, very, very close friends who have lost their husbands or lost their wives. A friend of mine, the wife had cancer, and within 3 months, six days to their daughter's wedding, she passed on in 6 days. So the husband, who is my friend, had to, go through that wedding, take the, he took the role, and he was, and he kept on saying to me, Tom, I wasn't even prepared. So you just said we must talk about it. We must have these conversations. Death is part of me. This earlier this morning, and you said, oh, sometimes a will can be good, and it can be positive, it can be negative, and I'm hoping that you can, and that was shocking to me, and because I thought if there is a will, at least everybody is taken care of. So what should the wife do if the husband chooses not to have a will? Because when a woman mentions the discussion about her husband's will, it is usually swept under the carpet, and the woman is sometimes tagged as desperate or even assumed to be planning her husband's death. Some do not even bring these conversations up at all. Absolutely. For the woman from a polygamous home, it's even more intense, because there are other women, there are other children, extended family, business associates. So the question is, what should you do while your partner is alive? How should the woman go about this? What should she ask for, or what should be put in place when he is still alive?
Okay. So first of all, I think what a woman should do is, one, get maybe an account, a joint account. If it's not amenable to a will, maybe you might be amenable to a joint account. And a joint account, not a signatory. A lot of people mistake being signatory to their husband's account or the wife's account as having the money lapse when the owner of the account dies. So being a signatory to the account doesn't really stand for much, because when the man dies, that mandate has lapsed. Also, having a joint account depends on what kind of mandate you give the bank. So if, for example, you have a joint account and either of you could sign of that account, then when the man dies, you can control the account. But if it's both of you must sign, for that to operate that account, then it's almost as good as not being a joint holder of the account, because when the man dies, the mandate dies with him. You can't sign for his own part. You have to get letters of probate for that. Another thing women can do is advise your husband, for example, to have a living trust. And a living trust is an arrangement where the settler gives the trustee the right to hold and manage his assets for the benefit of a purpose or person. So what that means is that the man puts his assets, it can either be revocable, it can be irrevocable. He puts his assets in the hands of the trust company most often. And we have quite a number of trust companies in Nigeria. And one person that has done that successfully, is Ganifa Wing. He put his assets in the hands of the trust company. Now, what a trust will do for you that a will not do is that it can help you administer that asset while you're alive. You can oversee it, so to speak. So everybody knows what you have, and everybody knows how you want to manage it. And the beautiful thing about it is that you can change things around in your lifetime while you're still alive, and see how what works and what will not work for you. Another thing also is that you can your husband can give you what, especially for those from polygamous homes, he can give you what he wants to give you during his lifetime, and do a deed of gift. Say, okay, you don't want to do a will, but you know that I have co-wives, and you have adult children that might be troublesome. So please, can you give me what you want to give me in your lifetime, so that everybody knows it? And I'll tell you the story of a friend of mine that her father did that. He did a will, quite all right, when he was 70, and he called all his children. He had children from 4 different women, and he called them, and he read out what he wanted to put in his will to them, and said anybody that was not satisfied with it should come and meet him, and then he will explain better, why he did the things he did. But for the children of the first wife who were older, he gave them some properties, but he told them that you will get these properties because the children of the last wife, who were then in their early years in secondary school, that it was the proceeds from the rent of that property that he was going to use to train those children, and he did that. He was 85 this year, and he called this last year rather, and he called his children again and said, look, okay, the last of my children have graduated, you can all go. Things are going to be terrible or ugly for the wife. So a woman can advise her husband, you know what, just do what you need to do for me during your lifetime, and then we'll move on from that. So it depends on each situation and each circumstance, but we can be very creative about different circumstances and scenarios, working with the man, knowing the man, and knowing what might be amiable to him, as you presented. And lastly, what I always say, a woman must have her own. You must be able to stand, firmly, financially, to some extent, so that if your husband dies, you can take up the responsibilities and do the things that you need to do.
Tara, thank you very much. Tone Talks with Tara on Women Radio 91.7. My name is Tom Okiwale Shunaya, and I have with me Tara. Tara is a schoolmate. We went to the will together. He didn't write a will, but that has not affected Tara in any way at all. They planned. They were planned. They put plans in place. Tara, you spoke about joint account, and it's also good for that you kind of educated us that having a joint account does not mean you are a signatory. So you were kind of explaining the things that women need to do, when the husband doesn't want to do a will. You spoke about the living trust, the one late Gani Fayemi did during his lifetime. So I have a comment here, and it says, at what stage should I, that's the wife, this is a wife, at what stage should I bring up the discussion of will with my husband? Is it at an early stage of marriage or later years? Did you hear me, Tara?
Yes, I did. At any stage,
Okay.
every stage, later or early, because who told you that you will have 10 years of marriage? Who told you that you will have 1 year of marriage? So I think it's one of the things that we should start to talk about when you have these counselings. Once you start having assets, you should have a will. And wills really are not even just for assets. Therefore, once you start having children, you should have a will, because you'll be able to put that there, who you want as your children's guidance, how you want your children's education to be, and stuff like that. So it's not only until you have a piece of land in Banana Island, or you are 12, 25 years in marriage, that you should start, talking about having a will. As soon as you get married, start having assets. You should have a will.
Thank you, Tara. So, my producer, Miracle, said, can I ask you to just break it down for the average, my auntie, Mama Boni, right, in Abeokuta, she sells, soft drinks. And I also have, friends in the market who sell pepper. They may not really understand what we're talking about, assets and what have you. So Miracle wants you to break it down for the average market woman, right? The average market woman, okay? How does she need to plan? She may not understand asset or will, but what does she need to do? Can we break it down for that woman at the grassroots level who do not understand the kind of financial knowledge we're talking about?
Okay, so once you have a child, for example, and you want to plan for that child's future, and you have the knowledge, though, that you might not be around for that child's lifetime for whatever reasons, you start to think of how you can plan a future for that child. The first thing I would actually think of, which I didn't do, but which it's a very good investment, is a life insurance scheme for that child. Maybe when that child is 18, some amount of money is going to be put aside, and you get some money from the insurance company. So you can insure the child's life. And that, that, okay, when the child is 18, when you get that money, it goes for university education or something. You could also buy, we're talking to the market woman now that wants to plan for a child. Yes. So you could also get like an account for that child. You could, or your husband and you could get that account for that child and put in money for that child. And there's something called education trust fund too that could help you train that child. You get a trust company, you pay them money, and they pay the school fees of the child. And it's ensured to some point that if anything happens to you, that child's education would continue. Am I making it elementary enough?
You're trying. You're trying. No, actually, you are trying. Honestly, the life insurance bit is quite good, and knowing that they can also put a few things in place. But I'm just wondering. You see a lot of. There was a time we were talking to women about insurance, and they just said, whoa, I'm just paying. I'm not falling sick. I can't. I've paid for 3 years now, and debt is not come, and all the money I've spent for 3 years now is just gone down the drains. How else do you think we can? And actually, you do find women who are educated saying that as well. How else can we?
The thing about insurance. The thing about insurance is that yes, you pay the premiums, but for some people, it's even their offices that pay the premiums. For some of us that are professionals, like I know that the MBA, for example, takes part of my practicing fee, and I have a life insurance with an insurance company that if anything happens to me, so far I've paid my practicing fee, you know, I would my beneficiaries will get some money. Not even that, even associations, our association, for example, our school association has a life insurance for members. The thing about life insurance is that you bypass probate. Once the beneficiary is an adult, or even if he's not an adult, if you can have a guardian that can stand, for him, or he has an account, they will pay. You don't have to go through probate at all. It's one of the easiest ways of getting money.
Tara, bypass probate. Please let me break it down.
So if you have life insurance, for example, and inevitable happens, and when you have life insurance, you have a form. You always fill a form, and you have your beneficiaries. You have your next of kin, people that they can contact if anything happens to you. Now, if the inevitable happens, your beneficiaries, the stated beneficiaries in that policy statement, takes your death certificate to the insurance company and says, "Oh, this person is dead." They do their investigations and they pay immediately. They don't tell you to go and get a will. They don't tell you to go and get probate or anything. They pay based on that policy statement.
Thank you. Thank you, Tara. It's 5:30. TounTalks with Tara on Women Radio 91.7. I've had about 4 messages now, and I just quickly want to mention that if anybody wants to send a message to us, please do so at WFM 917 on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. Yes, and on YouTube you can drop your message as well. Thank you. At some point in time, I'm going to bring in another friend of mine, Tara. We mentioned this because I also want us to look at how this works with our Muslim brothers and sisters. But I have this message from Amina. Amina said, "How does and I think this is very, very true. How does one deal with a husband that does not want to share information about his assets or about anything with his wife? There are men who do not want to share anything. I mean, your story is a story of good one. There's trust. You were able to do things together. But there are men who do not want to share. And there are women too. I mean, we've seen instances of women who, when they pass away, when they pass on, they are wealthy and they really leave things for their husband. And that's the only man, and they live with the husband. So Amina is saying that there are husbands who are secretive when it comes to things like this. They don't share information about their assets. What should women do with that?
I think we should talk to the men directly, because one thing about not sharing your assets when you're gone is that your hard work goes to waste. We've heard that there are quite a number of unclaimed billions in bank accounts lying fallow in the accounts in the banks in Nigeria. And why is that? Because most of those people that had those monies didn't divulge information about those monies to their loved ones. So nobody even knows that they had the money. So I think basically we should talk to the men. This is what happens when you die. And sometimes we don't even have to talk to them because they see it. Family goes after when people die. They come with their promises, for the first 1 week, 2 weeks. Once the body is in the ground, most people forget. Do you want your children, to be subjected to their mother having to beg around, for them to be able to eat? Even if you did a will, the time between when it takes, when you do the will, the reading of the will, probating that will, because you have to have a lot of money in the bank account to be able to even get the will probated and get letters of probate, even if you did a will. So do you want your family to really suffer? Those are the questions we have to ask the men. Do you want them to go through, your children having to go, drop out of school because they can't pay the fees? I think when we start to have those discussions with the men, then maybe they would see why they need to divulge information, or why they even have to do things. And you don't have to tell your wife or your children that you're making a will, for example. No, nobody needs to know. Nobody needs to know that you've put things in place. But when you die, people will now say, oh, you've made provision for this, you've made provision for that. And you have maybe your lawyer or whoever that comes to the family and says, oh, this man made a will and this is the will. So you don't have to tell anyone, your wife, for example, that you've done a life insurance, until you die. And then the insurance company gets in touch with her, or she sees the policy statement. It's better that you involve them and divulge the information. But it's worse if you don't divulge the information and you don't even prepare at all. And you just say, oh, I've lived my life, everybody can live their lives. It doesn't work that way. I think men ought to understand the implications of not doing stuff. And then when they understand that implication, they will do it, I believe.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Tara. TounTalks with Tara on death, basically, will. Whether you do a will or you don't do a will, what happens? We're live streaming on YouTube at WFM 917. Please feel free to drop your messages there. Antibose Irumsi, thank you very much. They said this is very informative and relevant. We should encourage women to own properties in their name and children. Women should prioritize and be intentional about owning properties. Tara, I want to quickly talk about the story of a Christie, right? And after that, I'm going to bring Halima on and then I'll come back to you. So Christie's husband, listen to this. Christie's husband does not trust his siblings. So he has brothers and sisters and he has parents. He does not trust. This is a true life, right? Because I have the message in front of me here. Christie's husband does not trust his siblings. And he said if anything should happen to him, his wife should move all the assets first and the few properties, and she should not be crying. The first thing we do, women, is that because when you said you were very pragmatic about death, I thought of Christie. A woman will be crying and be wailing and what have you. But the husband, Christie's husband because he's my friend, I know him. He said, "Oh, I've put things in a lot of things in her name, okay? And I don't trust my siblings, right? Even though he takes care of his siblings, they're not hungry. He takes care of them. They're good. They're okay in their own way. He said, I don't trust them. So I've asked her, move all login details, his ATM pins. She has information about his investments, his shares, and mutual funds. Because he does not trust his siblings. He said, if anything happens, my dear, I don't want to hear you crying, just boom, move everything. I mean, I would like to ask you, immediately the husband is dead, Tara. Like I said, the typical thing a woman will do is to wail. She's in shock and may not even know what to do. How should the woman handle this? Because I hear the most critical time is immediately after the man passes, and people take advantage of women at this period. In your case, what did you do? And, I also wanted to reference what Christie's husband said and what women need to know. Thank you.
Christie's husband is a very wise man because he knows his people. And what Christie should do if the inevitable happens and when it happens is to follow what her husband said. First of all, move out everything from the house. I know people that, when their husbands died, before the family people came, that same night, their friends got all the cars, all the valuables, all the title documents, move them out of the house. In fact, someone was saying yesterday at a program that I was in that it was our husband's elder brother that called and said, you know what, my younger siblings are coming to your house now. Your husband's title documents are upstairs somewhere. Take them out of the house because they're coming for those things. So a woman should have trusted friends around her that she can say, this has happened. Please keep this for me in safety until I need it. And of course, once a man dies or once somebody dies, crying won't solve the problem. I always tell people, crying won't solve the problem. Once my husband practically died in my arms. I left him in the hospital, called siblings and said, you know what, I'm done. I'm not the kind of person, like I said, I'm pragmatic about that. I'm not the kind of person that will fight over a dead body. I've had him in his lifetime. Why will I fight with you over a dead body? What will a dead body do to me? So I told them, he's here in the hospital, he's dead, whatever. Please come and stand and take whatever. I'm done, I'm through. And I drove home. And once I drove home, I ensured that my mind was intact. I knew what I wanted to do. And I started to do all the things I needed to do. So wailing, crying, it's not going to solve the issues. The first thing that you should be thinking about is what next. And if you know that you have a family, in-laws like Christy's husband, then you should get yourself surrounded with people that you know that even if you can't fight because you're overwhelmed with your emotions, they will fight for you.
Tara, thank you very much. Yes, we're looking at making a will, giving everybody peace of mind. I'm going to come to you later because I want us to talk about, is it worth doing a will? Is it not? Because for all my life, I've always advocated do a will. But we will talk about that later. I'd like to talk to Halima now. So my friend, Dr. Rukayat from Kano. Dr. Rukayat is a lecturer at Bayero University, Kano, and she's also a friend. She was educating me yesterday, and Aisha as well. Aisha is my colleague. They were educating me yesterday. And I understand that Muslims are encouraged to write a will. So I'm coming to Halima now. That Muslims are encouraged to write a will. That was really, really reassuring for me to hear that even the Quran encourages to write a will, but that there is also a sharing formula, but that there is a limit to how much one could give out. When I heard that there is a sharing formula, I said at least, something goes to the woman for death. Well, I invited Barrister Halima Mohammed, who resides in FCT, to advise better. So, Barrister Halima, is it mandatory for every Muslim to write a will to protect his family, and how does it really work? Just guide us. Thank you.
Good evening, Tone, and everybody. Thank you for having me on this show. Can you hear me well?
We can hear you loud and clear. Naoni.
In Lafia. All right. In Islamic law, it is encouraged to write a will, especially if you have any outstanding debts and other things that needs to be cleared. But the most